It is 11 p.m. and you are lying in bed, phone in hand, and you have been swiping for 40 minutes. You got 3 matches, none of them responded. You put the phone down feeling hollow. Not just disappointed, but somehow less than you were an hour ago. You did not download a dating app. You downloaded a machine designed to make you feel exactly this way. That feeling has a name in Stoic philosophy, and it was diagnosed with surgical precision by a man who had far bigger problems than a bad match rate. His name was Epictetus. He was a slave in Rome around 55 AD, owned by a man named Epaphroditus, a powerful secretary in Nero's court. Epictetus did not have a phone, but he understood exactly the trap you are in. Here's what this video is going to do. By the end, you will understand the precise psychological mechanism that dating apps exploit. And it is the same mechanism Epictetus identified as the single source of all human suffering. More importantly, you will have 3 concrete techniques drawn directly from his teachings that you can apply to your phone before you go to sleep tonight. Epictetus was not born into philosophy. He was property. His owner Epaphroditus, according to the biographer Celsus and later accounts preserved by Origen, once twisted Epictetus's leg to test whether the slave would break. Epictetus calmly told him, "You are going to break it." Epaphroditus kept twisting. The leg snapped. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you?" He felt no rage, not because he was numb, but because he had already drawn a line in his mind that his owner could never cross. That line is the entire foundation of Stoic practice. Epictetus called it the most important distinction a human being can make. The difference between what is up to us and what is not up to us. In Greek, he used the word prohairesis, your faculty of choice, your will, your inner response. Everything inside that circle is yours. Everything outside it, other people's reactions, their choices, their swipes, is not. Now apply that directly to what happens when you open Tinder. You upload photos, you write a bio, you swipe right on someone. Every single one of those actions sits in a peculiar middle ground. You perform them, but the outcome is completely outside your control. Whether she swipes right back, whether he reads your message, whether the match leads anywhere, none of that is up to you. And the app knows this. The app is built on this. The business model of every major dating app depends on you forgetting the dichotomy of control. It needs you to emotionally invest in outcomes you cannot determine. Because the moment you stop caring about those outcomes, you stop compulsively opening the app. You check it once, act on what you can control, and close it. That behavior pattern generates no revenue. Your suffering is literally the product. This is not a conspiracy theory. In 2022, internal documents from a major dating platform, reported by the Wall Street Journal, confirmed that their matching algorithms are deliberately calibrated to create intermittent reinforcement, not consistent reward. Intermittent reward, the same psychological mechanism used in slot machines. You win just enough, just unpredictably enough, that you cannot stop pulling the lever. Intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful conditioning tool in behavioral psychology. B.F. Skinner demonstrated in the 1950s that rats given random, unpredictable rewards pressed a lever far more obsessively than rats given consistent rewards. Dating apps do not give you consistent matches. They give you random ones. Your brain cannot distinguish this pattern from a gambling addiction because neurologically it is one. And here is the cruelest part of the design. The metric you are chasing, matches, likes, responses, is presented to you as a measure of your worth. Not as a random output of an algorithm, not as a function of timing and traffic and server logic, but as a referendum on whether you are desirable as a human being. You are handed an outcome you cannot control and told it defines you. Epictetus would call this the most dangerous confusion possible. Let's go back to Rome. After Epaphroditus broke his leg, Epictetus was eventually freed. The historical record is unclear on exactly when, but we know he set up a school in Nicopolis in what is now northwestern Greece, around 90 AD. Students came from across the empire, and the first thing he taught them, the thing he returned to in almost every lecture preserved by his student Arian, was this: you have been confusing your opinion of yourself with other people's opinions of you. That confusion is voluntary, and you can end it. Stay with me here, because this is where the diagnosis gets uncomfortable. You already know intellectually that a match on Tinder does not mean you are attractive. You know that algorithms suppress profiles, that people are distracted, that rejection is noise. You know this. And yet, the hollow feeling comes anyway. Why? Because knowledge is not enough. The Stoics were very clear. Understanding a principle and training yourself to live by it are two completely different things. Here is the question that should keep you watching. If Epictetus, a man who was enslaved, physically broken, and owned as property, could achieve a state of genuine psychological freedom, why can you not achieve the same thing with an app? What does he know that you have not yet practiced? The answer is not willpower. It is not detachment in the cold, emotionless sense. It is something far more precise and far more actionable. The Stoic principle at the center of this is formally called the Dichotomy of Control, and its most concentrated expression appears in the opening lines of Epictetus's Enchiridion, the handbook his student Arian compiled from lecture notes around 108 AD. The first sentence reads, "Some things are in our control and others not." That is the whole system. Everything else is commentary. What is in your control, according to Epictetus? Your judgments, your intentions, your desires, your decisions about how to respond. That is the complete list. What is not in your control? Your body, your reputation, your property, and critically, other people's choices. Every single thing that happens after you hit send on a dating app message falls into the second category. Completely, without exception. The untrained mind, what the Stoics called the mind ruled by passions rather than reason, does the following. It performs an action, attaches its entire emotional state to the outcome of that action, receives a bad outcome, and concludes that the self is damaged. Swipe, no match, I am unattractive. Message, no reply, I am not worth responding to. This chain of logic feels automatic and inevitable. But Epictetus says there is a gap in that chain, and the gap is where your freedom lives. Between the event and your response, there is a moment. The Stoics called it the pause, the instant where you can exercise prohairesis, your faculty of rational choice, before the automatic emotional response takes over. Marcus Aurelius, writing his private journal in 170 AD, the text we now call Meditations, described this practice obsessively. He wrote it not as inspiration, but as training, reminding himself again and again to catch the moment before the reaction. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, emperor of Rome, and he still needed daily written practice to maintain this skill. That should tell you something. The Stoics never claimed this was easy or natural. They claimed it was learnable. They were not describing a personality type. They were describing a discipline, the same way a musician describes scales. Not talent, but daily repetition until the response becomes second nature. Now let's talk about what this looks like inside a dating app specifically. Research published in 2016 in the journal Computers and Human Behavior found that Tinder users reported significantly lower self-esteem and higher body dissatisfaction than non-users, regardless of their actual match rates. The app did not reward the attractive and punish the unattractive. It lowered self-worth across the board. Because the mechanism is not feedback, it is dependency. The app trains you to need its validation the way a gambling machine trains you to need the next spin. And like a gambling machine, it gives you just enough to keep you in the chair. A match here, a message there. Enough dopamine to prevent you from quitting, not enough satisfaction to feel complete. The Stoics had a word for this state of chronic, low-grade craving. They called it epithemia, disordered desire, desire that can never be satisfied because it is aimed at the wrong target. The wrong target is not connection. Connection is a legitimate and deeply human need. The Stoics were not anti-relationship. The wrong target is the metric that substitutes for connection, the match count, the like count, the response rate. These numbers feel like connection, but they are not. They are a map drawn by an algorithm that profits from your confusion of the two. You are chasing the map and calling it the territory. Here's the rehook before we get into the practical application. Everything I have described, the intermittent reinforcement, the self-worth attachment, the disordered desire, is not a character flaw in you. It is the intended output of a system that was engineered by some of the smartest behavioral scientists alive. You are not weak for falling into it. But Stoicism offers you something these engineers never anticipated, a framework for opting out without deleting the app. You do not have to quit dating apps to stop being broken by them. Epictetus did not escape slavery to achieve freedom. He achieved freedom while still enslaved, by training his mind to live entirely within the circle of his own control. The goal is not to remove the app from your phone. The goal is to remove the app's power over your self-conception. Those are completely different operations, and only one of them is actually available to you. So here is what you actually do about it. 3 concrete techniques drawn directly from Epictetan practice that you can implement before this video ends. Not philosophy, protocol. Not inspiration, procedure. Each one targets a specific point in the psychological chain that the app exploits. Together, they do not make you indifferent to dating. They make you immune to the machine while remaining open to the human. Technique 1. Redefine your goal before you open the app. Epictetus taught his students to set what he called reserved intentions, goals framed entirely within your own control. Instead of opening Tinder with the goal of getting matches, you open it with the goal of writing one honest, specific message to one person whose profile genuinely interests you. That is it. The goal is the action, not the response. You have succeeded the moment you send it, regardless of what happens next. This sounds small, but it is structurally radical. You have just moved your success condition from outside your control to inside it. The app can no longer give you failure, because failure is now defined as not doing the action, and that is entirely up to you. The algorithm has no lever inside your goal anymore. Epictetus called this practicing with impression, meeting each situation with a preset rational frame before the emotional reaction can take hold. Technique 2. Enforce a time boundary based on function, not willpower. Most people try to limit their app usage through raw willpower, telling themselves they will only check it once a day and then failing. The Stoics did not rely on willpower. They relied on structure. Epictetus taught in scheduled sessions, dismissed students at a fixed time, and structured his day around actions rather than moods. You use the same principle. Open the app, take one deliberate action, close it. Not a time limit, a task limit. One deliberate action means respond to any existing conversations, send one new message if you choose to, and close the app. Swiping is not an action. Swiping is the slot machine lever. Swiping is the behavior the app wants because it costs you nothing to do and trains compulsion. Messaging is an action because it requires intention, specificity, and the courage to be seen. Every time you substitute a message for a swipe, you are practicing Stoic discipline in the most literal possible way. Technique 3. Run the nightly dichotomy audit. This is taken almost directly from the Stoic practice of evening review, described by Epictetus, practiced by Marcus Aurelius, and documented in detail by the Stoic writer Seneca, who described the practice in his letters from around 65 AD. Before you sleep, ask 2 questions about your app behavior that day. First, what did I do that was fully within my control? Second, what outcome did I attach my emotional state to that was not in my control? You are not doing this to punish yourself for caring about outcomes. You are doing it to train the perceptual distinction between the 2 categories. Seneca wrote that this nightly review was not about guilt, it was about clarity. You are building a mental habit of sorting experience into what belongs to you and what does not. Over time, this sorting happens in real time. The hollow feeling after a non-response gets intercepted before it lands, because your trained mind catches it and labels it correctly. That outcome was never mine to own. These 3 techniques do not guarantee you more matches. They guarantee something Tinder's algorithm cannot give you and cannot take away, a stable self-conception that does not fluctuate with your notification count. That is not emotional numbness. Epictetus was not numb when his leg was being broken. He was present, clear, and unmoved. Not because he did not feel, but because he had trained himself to locate his identity somewhere the pain could not reach. The attention economy runs on one assumption, that you will confuse external metrics for internal value. Every platform, not just dating apps, but social media, news feeds, engagement counts, is built on that single confusion. The Stoics diagnosed this confusion 2,000 years before Silicon Valley monetized it. The Enchiridion was not written for Roman senators. It was written for people in chains who needed a philosophy that worked in the worst conditions imaginable. If Epictetus could maintain his identity while owned as property in Nero's Rome, while his body was literally subject to another person's will, you can maintain yours while a matching algorithm decides whether to surface your profile today. The conditions are not comparable in suffering, but the philosophical challenge is identical. Can you locate your worth somewhere that external systems cannot reach? Epictetus said yes. He said it is the only place it has ever been. Here is where we land. Tinder is not designed to find you a partner. It is designed to make you need it. Those are incompatible goals, and the company has chosen one of them. The dichotomy of control is not a way to stop wanting connection. It is a way to want it clearly, to pursue it deliberately, and to stop handing a behavioral algorithm the keys to your self-worth. You are allowed to use the tool. You are not required to be shaped by it. Epictetus opened every lecture in Nicopolis with a version of the same question. Show me where you have placed your freedom. Not your happiness, your freedom. Because happiness is a result, and results are outside your control. Freedom is a location. You either place it inside your own choices, or you surrender it to every external thing that does not respond the way you hoped. A dating app is not special in this regard. It is just the latest device asking you to make that surrender. Place your freedom inside the circle. Write the honest message. Set the task limit. Run the nightly audit. Do these 3 things for 2 weeks and watch what changes. Not your match rate, but the thing underneath it. The thing that was hollow before you opened the app and hollow after. That hollowness is not a wound the app gave you. It is the space that opens up when you place your identity somewhere that an algorithm can swipe left on. Fill it from the inside, or keep handing it to the machine. If this framework landed for you, the next video in this series applies the same Stoic diagnosis to social media dopamine loops, specifically through the life of Marcus Aurelius at war, writing meditations in a military tent while managing an empire that was actively collapsing around him. The parallels to the modern attention economy are exact and they are brutal. Subscribe if you want that one. The description has the 3 techniques written out in full, so you have them without rewatching.